Marcus Chen thought he was just returning a lost wallet that Tuesday morning. But the small note he tucked inside would soon trigger events that would transform both his life and that of Victoria Hayes, one of the city's most successful entrepreneurs. What started as a simple act of honesty became something far more profound when Victoria discovered the boy's message hidden among her business cards. The question that would haunt her for days was simple. How do you repay someone who expects nothing in return? And what happens when that person needs everything you can give? Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The rain had been falling steadily for 3 hours when Marcus Chen spotted the leather wallet lying partially hidden beneath a park bench at Meridian Square. The 14-year-old had been taking his usual shortcut through the financial district on his way to his afternoon job at Romano's Pizza, when the glint of expensive leather caught his eye through the downpour. His worn sneakers squelched against the wet pavement as he approached, water dripping from the brim of his faded baseball cap. Marcus glanced around the nearly empty plaza, noting only a few scattered office workers hurrying past with umbrellas, their faces buried in their phones. The storm had driven most people indoors, leaving the usually bustling square eerily quiet. He crouched down and carefully picked up the wallet, immediately noticing its weight and quality. The leather was supple and clearly expensive, nothing like the frayed canvas wallet he carried in his back pocket that barely held his bus pass and the few crumpled bills he managed to save from his part-time earnings. Opening the wallet carefully, Marcus felt his breath catch. Thick stacks of $100 bills filled multiple compartments, more money than he had ever seen in one place. His hands trembled slightly as he counted, reaching well over $3,000 before he stopped, overwhelmed by the sheer amount. Between the cash, he found several platinum credit cards, all bearing the name Victoria Hayes, along with business cards identifying her as the founder and CEO of Hayes Innovation Solutions. For a moment, Marcus simply stared at the money, his mind racing. $3,000 would solve so many problems. It would cover his mother's overdue medical bills that kept her awake at night, worry lines etching deeper into her face with each passing day. It would pay for the school supplies and clothes he desperately needed but never asked for, knowing how hard his mother worked just to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. It would even allow him to quit his pizza delivery job and focus on his studies, maybe even apply for that engineering program at the community college he had been researching in secret. The rain continued to fall around him as Marcus sat on the bench, holding the wallet in his lap. He thought about his mother, Sophia, who cleaned office buildings from midnight until dawn, her hands raw from chemicals and her back aching from years of bending over desks and vacuuming endless corridors. She never complained, never asked for help, but he saw the exhaustion in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. $3,000 could give her a break, maybe even allow her to see a doctor about the persistent cough that had been getting worse each week. But even as these thoughts swirled through his mind, Marcus knew what he had to do. His mother had raised him with unwavering principles about honesty and integrity, values that had been tested countless times in their struggling neighborhood, but never abandoned. She often told him that a person's character was defined not by what they did when others were watching, but by their choices when they thought no one would ever know. Marcus pulled out his phone and searched for Hayes Innovation Solutions. The company website showed an impressive glass tower downtown, with Victoria Hayes featured prominently as a successful entrepreneur who had built her tech consulting firm from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Her professional headshot showed a woman in her early 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes and an air of confidence that spoke of someone accustomed to making important decisions. He found the company's phone number and called, explaining to the receptionist that he had found Ms. Hayes' wallet and would like to return it. The receptionist, clearly surprised by the call, put him on hold for several minutes before returning with instructions to bring the wallet to the office immediately. Marcus agreed, despite knowing it would make him late for his shift at the pizza place, a tardiness that would likely result in lost wages he couldn't afford. Before leaving the park, Marcus reached into his own wallet and pulled out a small piece of paper, a receipt from the corner store where he had bought his mother's favorite tea the previous evening. On the back, he wrote a brief note in his careful handwriting. "Dear Ms. Hayes, I found your wallet in Meridian Square. Everything is here. I hope you have a wonderful day. Sometimes good things happen to good people." He tucked the note between two business cards in one of the wallet's inner pockets, hoping it might bring a smile to her face. The Hayes Innovation Solutions building towered 43 stories into the gray sky, its glass facade reflecting the storm clouds that continued to gather overhead. Marcus had never been inside such an impressive structure, and he felt distinctly out of place in his damp clothes and worn sneakers as he approached the marble-lined lobby. Security guards in crisp uniforms eyed him suspiciously as he explained his purpose to the front desk, their expressions softening only when the receptionist confirmed his appointment. The elevator ride to the 37th floor felt endless, and Marcus used the time to wring excess water from his cap and smooth down his damp hair. He caught his reflection in the polished elevator doors and wished he looked more presentable, more worthy of being in such an elegant space. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the executive floor, revealing a reception area that looked more like a luxury hotel lobby than an office. Victoria Hayes emerged from a conference room as Marcus was announced, her presence immediately commanding attention even in the spacious executive suite. She was taller than he had expected, with steel-gray hair pulled back in an elegant chignon and wearing a charcoal business suit that probably cost more than his mother made in 2 months. Her eyes, the same sharp intelligence he had seen in her photograph, focused on him with curious intensity. "You must be Marcus," she said, extending her hand with a warm smile that seemed genuine despite their obvious differences in station. "I understand you found my wallet." Marcus shook her hand, surprised by the firmness of her grip and the genuine warmth in her expression. "Yes, ma'am. I found it in Meridian Square about an hour ago. Everything should be there. I didn't take anything." He handed over the wallet, noting how her eyebrows rose slightly at its weight. Victoria opened the wallet and quickly scanned its contents, her expression shifting from businesslike efficiency to something approaching amazement. "This is remarkable," she said quietly, looking up at Marcus with newfound respect. "There's over $3,000 in here, not to mention credit cards and important documents. You could have simply taken the cash and thrown the wallet away, and no one would have been the wiser." "That wouldn't have been right," Marcus replied simply, shifting uncomfortably under her intense gaze. "It's not mine." Victoria studied him for a long moment, taking in his worn clothes, his earnest expression, and the obvious discomfort he felt in her luxurious office. "Most people would have at least taken something for their trouble, especially someone your age. How old are you, Marcus?" 14, ma'am. And I don't need anything for returning your wallet. I'm just glad I could get it back to you safely. Where do you live? How did you even know to call my office?" Marcus hesitated, not wanting to lie, but also not eager to highlight the stark differences in their circumstances. "I live with my mother in the Riverside district. I looked up your company online and figured calling your office was the best way to reach you." Victoria nodded slowly, her business mind clearly processing information and forming connections. Riverside was not known for its affluence, quite the opposite. It was a working-class neighborhood, where honesty like Marcus had shown was both more remarkable and more costly than it would be for someone with financial security. "Well, Marcus, I want you to know that what you've done today is extraordinary. Not many people would have made the choice you made." She opened her wallet again and pulled out several $100 bills. "Please, let me give you something for your trouble." Marcus stepped back slightly, shaking his head. "I appreciate it, Ms. Hayes, but I can't take your money. I didn't return your wallet to get paid for it. I returned it because it was the right thing to do." Victoria felt something stir in her chest, an emotion she rarely experienced in her high-stakes business world, where every interaction seemed to involve hidden agendas and calculated exchanges. This boy's refusal to accept any reward only reinforced the integrity he had already demonstrated. "At least let me give you a ride home. It's still raining, and you're already soaked." "Thank you. But I actually need to get to work. I'm probably already late." Marcus glanced at his phone, confirming that he was indeed 15 minutes behind schedule. "My boss isn't very understanding about tardiness." "Where do you work?" "Romano's Pizza on 5th Street. I deliver orders after school." Victoria made a mental note of the location, though she kept her expression neutral. "Well then, you'd better get going. But Marcus, I want you to know that what you did today has restored some of my faith in humanity. Thank you." Marcus smiled shyly and headed for the elevator, leaving Victoria alone in her office with her recovered wallet and a growing sense that she had just encountered something rare and precious. She remained standing by her floor-to-ceiling windows long after the elevator doors had closed, watching the rain streak down the glass and thinking about the boy who had chosen integrity over immediate financial relief. It wasn't until later that evening, as Victoria was organizing her wallet at home in her penthouse apartment, that she discovered Marcus's note. She had been removing business cards that had gotten slightly damp when the small piece of paper fluttered to her marble kitchen counter. Unfolding it carefully, she read the simple message, written in neat, careful handwriting on the back of a receipt from Chen's Corner Market. The note itself was touching enough, but it was the receipt that made Victoria's breath catch. The purchase was for a single box of chamomile tea, costing $3.47. Paid for with exact change, including several quarters and dimes. The date stamp showed it was from the previous evening, and the simple nature of the purchase painted a picture of someone carefully managing limited resources, choosing a small comfort for someone else, even when money was clearly tight. Victoria sat at her kitchen island, still dressed in her business suit, and read the note 3 more times. The phrase, "Sometimes good things happen to good people," particularly struck her, suggesting a worldview that maintained optimism despite what were clearly challenging circumstances. This wasn't the bitter wisdom of someone who had given up on fairness, but the hopeful philosophy of someone who still believed in justice and kindness, even when their own experience might suggest otherwise. She found herself thinking about Marcus throughout the following day, his image intruding during board meetings and client presentations. There was something about his quiet dignity and principled choice that challenged her assumptions about human nature. In her business world, she was accustomed to complex negotiations where everyone sought maximum advantage, where every gesture had an ulterior motive, where kindness was often a strategy rather than genuine sentiment. That weekend, Victoria found herself driving through the Riverside district, ostensibly running errands, but actually hoping to catch a glimpse of the boy who had returned her wallet. The neighborhood was a study in contrasts to her own upscale area, with older apartment buildings, small family businesses, and tree-lined streets that had seen better decades. It wasn't dangerous or run down, just working class in a way that spoke of people doing their best with limited resources. She located Romano's Pizza easily enough, a small storefront wedged between a laundromat and a used bookstore. Through the window, she could see Marcus behind the counter, carefully boxing pizzas and checking orders with the same attention to detail he had shown with her wallet. He wore the restaurant's uniform polo shirt and a cap with the Romano's logo, and despite his youth, he moved with the efficiency of someone experienced in the work. Victoria parked across the street and watched for several minutes, noting how Marcus interacted with customers with patience and courtesy, how he double-checked each order before sending it out, how he cleaned and organized his workspace between rushes. Even in this mundane setting, his character showed through in small, consistent actions that spoke of someone who took pride in doing things correctly regardless of the task's perceived importance. When Marcus emerged from the restaurant with a delivery bag and climbed onto a bicycle that had clearly seen better years, Victoria made an impulsive decision. She followed at a distance as he navigated through the neighborhood, making stops at various apartment buildings and houses. She watched him climb 3 flights of stairs to deliver to an elderly customer, saw him wait patiently while someone searched for exact change, observed him help an elderly woman carry her groceries to her door even though it wasn't part of his job. Each observation reinforced Victoria's growing conviction that Marcus represented something increasingly rare. Genuine goodness, without expectation of reward. In her world of corporate maneuvering and strategic relationships, such authenticity was not just uncommon, but often viewed as naive or potentially exploitable. Yet Marcus seemed to navigate his world with this integrity intact, suggesting either remarkable strength of character or exceptional upbringing, possibly both. Victoria's investigation into Marcus's background began professionally but quickly became personal. Through discreet inquiries and public records, she learned that Marcus lived with his mother, Sophia Chen, in a modest two-bedroom apartment. Sophia worked multiple cleaning jobs to support them both, and Marcus had been working part-time since he turned 14 to help with expenses. His school records, which Victoria accessed through a friend on the school board, showed consistently excellent grades despite his work schedule, with particular strength in mathematics and science. More telling were the small details that painted a picture of quiet struggle handled with dignity. Marcus had never missed a day of work at Romanos in 8 months of Dow. Employment. His school. Counselors' notes mentioned concerns about his wearing the same few outfits repeatedly, but also praised his helpfulness with younger students and his volunteer work at the school's tutoring program. Teachers consistently described him as respectful, hard-working, and unusually mature for his age. The more Victoria learned, the more she realized that Marcus's decision to return her wallet wasn't just honest, it was heroic. $3,000 would have been transformative for his family, yet he had never wavered in his decision to do the right thing. This wasn't virtue signaling or hoping for future reward. It was moral courage in its purest form. Victoria began formulating a plan that went far beyond simple gratitude. She had built her business on identifying exceptional talent and creating opportunities for growth, and everything she had learned about Marcus suggested potential that was being constrained by circumstances rather than ability. But she also recognized that any gesture would need to be handled delicately, preserving the boy's dignity while offering genuine assistance. Her first step was reaching out to Marcus's school principal, Dr. Elizabeth Warren, a woman Victoria had met at various civic functions. Over lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown. Victoria explained her encounter with Marcus without revealing her ulterior motives. Marcus Chen is exceptional, Dr. Warren confirmed, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. He's exactly the kind of student we hope to see succeed, but I worry about his future. His grades qualify him for advanced programs, but his family's financial situation limits his options. He's mentioned wanting to study engineering, but I'm not sure how realistic that is given his circumstances. What would it take to make it realistic? Victoria asked carefully. Dr. Warren considered the question. Honestly, full financial support through high school and college. His mother works incredibly hard, but there's only so much one person can do. Marcus works to help support them now, which limits his study time and extracurricular activities. Without that pressure, and with proper educational support, he could accomplish remarkable things. Victoria nodded, her plan beginning to crystallize. But she knew that simply offering money would likely be refused, just as Marcus had refused her reward for returning the wallet. Any assistance would need to be structured in a way that felt earned rather than charitable, respecting the family's pride while providing necessary support. Her opportunity came sooner than expected. 3 weeks after returning her wallet, Marcus called Victoria's office with news that made her heart race with possibilities. Ms. Hayes, this is Marcus Chen, the boy who found your wallet. I'm sorry to bother you at work, but I have some news I thought you might want to know. Victoria immediately set aside the contract she had been reviewing. Marcus, it's wonderful to hear from you. What's happening? Well, you remember how there were credit cards in your wallet? I noticed on the news this morning that there's been a big credit card fraud ring discovered, and they were specifically targeting people in the financial district. The police are asking anyone who lost cards recently to contact them. I thought you should know in case your information got compromised somehow. Victoria felt a warm rush of gratitude, not for the information itself, but for the fact that Marcus was still looking out for her welfare weeks after their encounter. Thank you for thinking of me, Marcus. That's very considerate. As it happens, I had already frozen those cards and gotten new ones issued, but I appreciate your concern. Good. I'm glad you're protected. I just wanted to make sure you knew about it. Victoria seized the moment. Marcus, I've been thinking about our conversation, and I have a proposition for you. My company sponsors several scholarship programs, and I'd like to nominate you for one of them. Would you be interested in hearing about it? There was a long pause on the line. Ms. Hayes, I appreciate the thought, but I don't think I'm the kind of student who gets scholarships. My grades are good, but they're not exceptional, and I don't have a lot of extracurricular activities. Actually, your grades are exceptional, and character matters more than activities. Would you be willing to meet with me to discuss it? I promise I'm not offering charity. This is a legitimate program that rewards exactly the kind of integrity you demonstrated." End quote. Another pause. "Could my mother come with me? She handles all the important decisions." "Of course. I'd be honored to meet her." Victoria scheduled the meeting for the following Saturday at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop in a middle-class neighborhood that wouldn't intimidate Marcus's mother while still allowing for serious conversation. She spent the intervening days researching scholarship programs and educational opportunities, but more importantly, she spent time thinking about how to present her intentions in a way that would be acceptable to a family that clearly valued independence and self-reliance. Saturday arrived with bright autumn sunshine, and Victoria found herself unexpectedly nervous as she waited in the coffee shop. She had presented to boards of directors and negotiated million-dollar contracts without feeling this level of anxiety. But something about this meeting felt more important than any business deal she had ever concluded. Marcus arrived precisely on time with a woman who was clearly his mother, though the family resemblance was subtle. Sophia Chen was small and slight, with prematurely gray hair and hands that showed the effects of her cleaning work, but she carried herself with quiet dignity that immediately reminded Victoria of her son. She wore what was obviously her best outfit, a simple navy dress that was clean and pressed, but showed signs of age and careful maintenance. "Ms. Hayes," Marcus said formally. "This is my mother, Sophia Chen. Mom, this is Ms. Hayes, the lady whose wallet I found." Sophia stepped forward and offered her hand with a shy smile. "Thank you for meeting with us, Ms. Hayes. Marcus told me what you said about a scholarship. It is very kind of you to think of him." Victoria shook Sophia's hand, noting the calluses and the firm grip, evidence of years of hard physical work. "Please, call me Victoria, and it's my pleasure. Marcus did something remarkable when he returned my wallet, and I believe remarkable people deserve remarkable opportunities." They settled at a quarter table with coffee and pastries that Victoria had pre-ordered, wanting to ensure that hospitality was established from the beginning. Sophia accepted the refreshments graciously but sparingly, clearly uncomfortable with accepting even small gifts from a stranger. "Before we discuss anything specific," Victoria began, "I want you both to understand that what I'm proposing isn't charity. My company has legitimate educational support programs designed to identify and nurture exceptional talent. Marcus qualifies for DAL. These programs based entirely on his own merits." Sophia nodded carefully. What exactly would such a program involve? Victoria had prepared for this question. Full educational support through high school and college, including tuition, books, and living expenses. In return, recipients commit to maintaining high academic standards and completing summer internships at my company or similar organizations. After graduation, there's no employment obligation. But many recipients choose to work with us because they've developed skills and relationships through the program. End quote. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes bright with interest, but also concern. "That sounds incredible, Ms. Hayes, but it also sounds expensive. What happens if I don't live up to expectations? What if I can't maintain the grades or something goes wrong?" The program is designed for success, not failure. You'll have tutoring support, mentoring, and resources to ensure you can meet the academic requirements. And, Marcus, based on everything I've learned about you, I have no doubt you'll exceed expectations rather than fail to meet them. Sophia had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. "Ms. Hayes, you seem like a very nice woman, and this is a generous offer, but I have to ask, why Marcus? You don't know us, and there must be many students who need help." Victoria had expected this question and had spent considerable time preparing her answer. "Sophia, when Marcus returned my wallet, he demonstrated something that can't be taught: absolute integrity under pressure. That wallet contained enough money to solve many problems for your family, yet Marcus never wavered in his decision to return it. In my business, I've learned that technical skills can be taught, but character like your son's is rare and precious." End quote. She paused, meeting Sophia's eyes directly. "But there's more. I'd done some research, with your permission, through Marcus's school. His teachers describe someone who helps other students, who works hard despite having a job, who treats everyone with respect regardless of their status. These aren't just nice qualities, they're leadership traits that predict exceptional success. Marcus looked uncomfortable with the praise, but Sophia's expression showed growing understanding. You think Marcus could be successful in business? I think Marcus could be successful in anything he chooses to pursue. But more than that, I think he'll be successful in a way that makes the world better, not just richer. That's exactly the kind of person my company wants to support. End. The conversation continued for over an hour, with Victoria explaining the specific details of the scholarship program, the expectations and requirements, and the long-term benefits. Marcus asked intelligent questions about the academic components, while Sophia focused on the practical aspects and potential obligations. Finally, Sophia asked the question Victoria had been waiting for. This is very generous, but I have to ask again. What do you really want from us? In my experience, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Victoria leaned back in her chair, appreciating Sophia's directness. That's a fair question, and I respect you for asking it. The truth is, I want Marcus to succeed because I believe his success will benefit everyone around him. People like your son don't just achieve personal success, they lift up their communities, they solve problems. They make ethical decisions in positions of power. Supporting Marcus isn't just an investment in one person, it's an investment in the kind of future I want to live in. End quote. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But if I'm being completely honest, there's also a personal element. Returning my wallet showed me something about human nature that I had almost stopped believing in. In a world where cynicism seems increasingly justified, Marcus proved that genuine goodness still exists. Supporting him is partly my way of saying that such goodness deserves to be rewarded and nurtured. End quote. Sophia looked at her son, who had been quietly absorbing the entire conversation. Marcus, what do you think? Marcus was quiet for a long moment before responding. I think Ms. Hayes is offering me an opportunity I never expected to have. I want to study engineering, and this would make that possible. But I also want to make sure I can live up to what she's offering. The fact that you're concerned about living up to expectations tells me you will, Victoria said gently. Marcus, I'm not offering this because I think you need saving. I'm offering it because I think you have the potential to save others, in ways big and small, throughout your life. Sophia reached across the table and took her son's hand. If you want to do this, Marcus, then we'll do it. But remember, this is a gift, and gifts come with responsibilities. Marcus squeezed his mother's hand and looked at Victoria. I accept, Ms. Hayes. And I promise, I won't let you down. Victoria felt tears threatening for the first time in years. Marcus, you've already proven you won't let anyone down. Now, let's just focus on making sure you have every opportunity to succeed. The scholarship program began immediately, with Marcus receiving tutoring support for his advanced classes and preparation for college entrance exams. Victoria arranged for him to reduce his hours at S. Romano's Pizza, supplementing his lost wages through the scholarship fund in a way that felt like compensation for his internship duties, rather than charity. As months passed, Victoria watched Marcus flourish in ways that exceeded even her optimistic expectations. His grades improved from excellent to exceptional, and more importantly, his confidence grew as he realized his intellectual potential. He joined the robotics club, started volunteering at a community center teaching younger children about science, and began taking advanced mathematics courses at the local community college. But it was the small moments that most impressed Victoria. Marcus never forgot to check on elderly neighbors when making deliveries, still helped at the tutoring center despite his busier schedule, and maintained the same humble courtesy that had characterized their first meeting. Success hadn't changed his character. It had simply given his character a larger stage on which to operate. Sophia's transformation was equally remarkable. With the financial pressure reduced, she was able to cut back to one cleaning job and enroll in English classes she had always wanted to take. Victoria watched Marcus's pride in his mother's achievements, understanding that the scholarship had benefited not just one student, but an entire family unit that had been struggling under economic pressure. The summer internship program proved particularly valuable, not just for Marcus, but for Victoria's company. Marcus approached every task with the same thoroughness he had shown in returning her wallet, asking thoughtful questions and offering insights that surprised seasoned employees. His youth and fresh perspective challenged established assumptions, while his work ethic earned universal respect. During one memorable project meeting, Marcus suggested a streamlined approach to client communications that was so elegant in its simplicity that Victoria immediately understood why she had invested in him. His solution didn't just solve the immediate problem. It revealed underlying issues that no one else had recognized. This wasn't luck or beginner's intuition. It was the systematic thinking of someone who naturally looked for the most ethical and efficient path forward. As Marcus's senior year of high school approached, college acceptances began arriving, each more impressive than the last. MIT, Stanford, Harvard, all recognized not just his academic achievements, but the character references that painted a picture of exceptional integrity and leadership potential. Victoria felt proud in a way she had never experienced with her business successes, knowing that she had played a role in unlocking possibilities that had always existed within Marcus. The evening before Marcus left for MIT, Victoria hosted a small celebration dinner at an upscale restaurant, inviting Marcus, Sophia, Dr. Warren, and several teachers who had supported Marcus throughout his academic journey. As she watched Marcus interact with genuine warmth and maturity with each guest, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them all together. "I want to make a toast," Victoria announced, raising her glass of champagne while Marcus and Sophia lifted their sparkling cider. "To Marcus, who taught me that the most valuable returns come from investments in character. And to Sophia, who raised a son who chose integrity when it would have been so easy to choose otherwise." Marcus stood to respond, his voice steady despite his obvious emotion. "Ms. Hayes, I know I've thanked you before, but I want everyone here to understand what your belief in me has meant. You didn't just give me money for college, you gave me the confidence to believe I deserved the opportunities that were being offered. But more than that, you showed me that success comes with the responsibility to help others the way you helped me." He paused, looking around the table at the faces of people who had supported his journey. "I promise that whatever I achieve in my career, I'll remember that it started with returning a wallet because my mother taught me it was the right thing to do. And it became possible because Ms. Hayes believed that doing the right thing should be rewarded." Victoria felt the tears she had been holding back throughout the evening finally flow freely. In her business career, she had achieved financial success beyond her wildest dreams. But she had never experienced the profound satisfaction that came from knowing she had fundamentally changed someone's life trajectory for the better. As the evening wound down and goodbyes were exchanged, Marcus Chen approached Victoria privately. "Ms. Hayes, I have something for you." He handed her a small wrapped package. "I wanted to give this to you before I left for school." Victoria unwrapped the gift carefully, finding a simple wooden picture frame containing a photograph of Marcus in his high school graduation cap and gown. But it was the inscription on the back that made her breath catch. "To Victoria Hayes, who proved that sometimes good things happen to good people. With gratitude always, Marcus Chen." The phrase was the same one Marcus had written on the receipt he had left in her wallet. But seeing it again in this context made Victoria realize how their relationship had come full circle. Marcus had begun by believing that good things happened to good people, and Victoria had been privileged to help make that belief come true. Years later, when Marcus graduated summa cum laude from MIT with degrees in both electrical engineering and business administration, Victoria sat in the audience feeling the same pride she imagined parents felt watching their children achieve their dreams. Marcus's valedictory speech focused on the importance of maintaining personal integrity in professional success, and he specifically thanked a businesswoman who taught me that the most important returns are the ones you give to others. After the ceremony, as Victoria congratulated Marcus and Sophia, she reflected on how a simple act of honesty had created ripple effects that were still expanding. Marcus had already accepted a position with a renewable energy company, drawn by their mission of solving environmental problems through innovative technology. His career path reflected the same value system that had led him to return her wallet, scaled up to address global challenges rather than personal ones. Ms. Hayes, Marcus said, as they walked across the campus, where he had spent 4 transformative years. I need to tell you something I've been thinking about throughout college. Victoria looked at him expectantly, noting how he had grown from a shy 14-year-old into a confident young man who carried himself with quiet authority. I've realized that returning your wallet wasn't just about honesty, Marcus continued. It was about believing that people fundamentally want to do the right thing, even when circumstances make it difficult. You could have just said thank you and moved on, but instead you chose to invest in that belief. You proved that good people do reward goodness, and that creates a cycle that makes the world better. Victoria smiled, understanding that Marcus had articulated something she had felt but never quite expressed. Their relationship had been about more than education or opportunity. It had been about validating the idea that integrity deserved support and that such support created more integrity in return. Marcus, she replied, you gave me something equally valuable. In a world where I had become accustomed to transactional relationships and calculated gestures, you showed me that genuine goodness still existed. Supporting your education wasn't charity. It was an investment in my own faith in humanity. As they continued walking, Sophia joined them, her face glowing with pride in her son's achievements. Victoria, she said, using the first name that had taken months for her to feel comfortable with. I want you to know that Marcus talks about you all the time. Not just about the scholarship, but about the example you set of using success to help others. Victoria felt deeply moved by Sophia's words, understanding that the impact of her decision had extended beyond Marcus to influence his entire worldview about the responsibilities that come with achievement. The conversation was interrupted by a young woman who approached Marcus with obvious excitement. Excuse me, are you Marcus Chen? I'm Sarah Patterson, and I've been following your research on sustainable energy storage. I'm starting my senior year, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to mentor me? Marcus looked surprised but pleased. I'd be happy to help Sarah. What specific area are you interested in? As Victoria watched Marcus immediately engage with enthusiasm in helping another student, she realized that the cycle she had started was already continuing. Marcus wasn't just succeeding academically, he was developing into exactly the kind of leader she had hoped to nurture. Someone who used his abilities and opportunities to lift up others. The wedding invitation arrived 3 years later, with Marcus requesting that Victoria serve as his honorary family. At his marriage to Jennifer Liu, a fellow engineer he had met during his first job, the ceremony was small and elegant, reflecting the same thoughtful simplicity that had characterized Marcus throughout their relationship. During the reception, Victoria found herself in conversation with Jennifer's parents, successful professionals who were clearly impressed by their new son-in-law. Marcus is remarkable, Jennifer's father commented. He talks about you often, Ms. Hayes. He says you taught him that success means having the power to help others achieve their dreams. Victoria felt the familiar warmth that came from seeing her investment in Marcus continuing to pay dividends in ways she had never anticipated. But it was Marcus's wedding speech that truly captured the full scope of their relationship's impact. Jennifer and I met because we were both working on renewable energy projects, Marcus began, addressing the gathered family and friends. But I only had the opportunity to work on those projects because 6 years ago, a woman named Victoria Hayes decided that returning a lost wallet deserved more reward than a simple thank you. He paused, finding Victoria in the audience. Victoria taught me that individual acts of integrity can create opportunities that transform entire lives. She showed me that successful people have the responsibility to create paths for others to succeed. Most importantly, she proved that good things really do happen to good people, sometimes in ways more wonderful than we ever imagined possible. Marcus raised his glass. So tonight, I want to toast not just my beautiful wife Jennifer, but also Victoria Hayes, who showed me that the most important thing you can do with good fortune is share it with others. As the applause died down, Victoria realized that her simple decision to reward Marcus's honesty had created a legacy that would extend far beyond their individual relationship. Marcus would carry forward the lessons about integrity and generosity throughout his career, influencing colleagues, mentees, and eventually his own children. in ways that would ripple through generations. The story came full circle 5 years later, when Victoria received an unexpected phone call from Marcus Chen, now a successful executive at his renewable energy company. "Victoria, I have something I need to tell you, and I wanted you to hear it from me first." Victoria immediately sensed the importance in his voice. "What's happening, Marcus?" "Juan. Jennifer and I have been talking about starting a scholarship program through our companies, focused on supporting students from working-class families who demonstrate exceptional character along with academic success. Potential. We want to call it the Marcus Chen Initiative for Educational Excellence." Victoria felt tears forming as Marcus continued. "We've been successful beyond anything I dreamed possible when I was 14, and we want to create the same kind of opportunities you created for me. But we want to do it right, and that means having you involved from the beginning." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, overwhelmed by the realization that her investment in one honest boy had grown into something that would benefit countless other young people facing similar challenges. "Marcus, I'm honored that you want to include me, but this should be your program. You and Jennifer have earned the right to create something entirely your own." "Victoria, you don't understand," Marcus replied, his voice filled with emotion. "Everything I've achieved, every opportunity I've had, every lesson I've learned about leadership and responsibility, it all traces back to that day I returned your wallet and you decided to reward integrity instead of just blah. Saying thank you. This program isn't separate from what you started, it's the continuation of it." The Marcus Chen Initiative launched 6 months later with an endowment that surprised even Victoria with its ambition. Marcus and Jennifer had committed a significant portion of their personal wealth to the program, but they had also secured partnerships with dozens of companies and individual donors who were inspired by the story of how a returned wallet had transformed into a mission to identify and nurture character-driven leadership. The program's first recipient was a 15-year-old girl named Rosa Martinez, whose teacher had nominated her after Rosa spent her lunch money for a week to buy supplies for a classmate whose family couldn't afford them. Like Marcus years earlier, Rosa initially protested that she didn't deserve such recognition for simply doing what felt right. Victoria attended the ceremony where Rosa received her scholarship, watching Marcus present the award with the same mixture of humility and determination that had characterized their first meeting. As Rosa accepted the recognition with tears in her eyes, Victoria saw the continuation of a cycle that had begun with a simple choice to return lost property and had evolved into a systematic effort to reward and nurture goodness in the world. The Marcus Chen Initiative exists because we believe that character matters more than circumstances. Marcus explained to the audience of students, parents, and community leaders. "We believe that young people who make ethical choices despite personal cost deserve support, and we believe that investing in such people creates a better world for everyone." Victoria found herself thinking about the young man who had once sat in a coffee shop, worried about whether he deserved the opportunities being offered to him. Now that same person was creating opportunities for others, demonstrating that the most valuable return on investment wasn't financial profit, but the multiplication of positive impact through successive generations. The program grew rapidly, identifying young people across the country who demonstrated exceptional integrity in their daily choices. Recipients included a boy who reported cheating he witnessed, despite knowing it would cost him friendships, a girl who used her part-time job earnings to pay for her elderly neighbor's medications, and a teenager who spent weekends cleaning up a local park because he believed his community deserved better. Each recipient's story reinforced Victoria's original insight about Marcus. That character revealed under pressure was the most reliable predictor of future positive impact. The program didn't just provide educational support. It created a network of ethically minded young leaders who supported each other and carried forward the mission of rewarding integrity wherever they found it. 3 years into the program's operation, Victoria received an invitation that brought her story with Marcus to an unexpected crescendo. The invitation was to speak at the National Conference on Youth Leadership, where she would be receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award for Educational Philanthropy. The honor was significant, but what made it extraordinary was that Marcus had been chosen to present the award, completing a circle that had begun with his simple act of honesty, standing at the podium before an audience of educators, business leaders, and young scholarship recipients. Victoria felt the weight of the journey that had brought her to this moment. 10 years ago, she began. I lost my wallet in a rainstorm. A 14-year-old boy found it, and instead of taking the $3,000 inside, he returned it with a note that said, "Sometimes good things happen to good people." She paused, finding Marcus in the audience, now 34 years old and recognized as one of the rising stars in sustainable energy leadership. That boy taught me that good things don't just happen randomly. They happen because people choose to make them happen. My role wasn't to create his character. It was simply to recognize it and provide the resources for it to flourish. Victoria's voice grew stronger as she continued. The Marcus Chen initiative now supports over 200 young people annually, but its real impact isn't measured in scholarships awarded or careers launched. Its real impact is in the demonstration that integrity creates opportunities, that goodness deserves reward, and that investing in character produces returns that extend far beyond any individual life. When Marcus took the stage to present the award, he spoke with the eloquence and authority of someone who had grown from a shy teenager into a confident leader. But Victoria could still see traces of the earnest boy who had been so concerned about living up to expectations. Victoria Hayes changed my life by recognizing something I didn't even know I possessed, the potential to use whatever success I might achieve to benefit others, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through the large EB auditorium. She taught me that the most important question isn't whether you deserve the opportunities you receive, but whether you'll use those opportunities to create more opportunities for others. He turned to face Victoria directly. The scholarship you gave me wasn't just about paying for college. It was about proving that someone believed I was worth investing in, and that belief became the foundation for everything I've accomplished since. Today, when young people ask me how to make a difference in the world, I tell them the same thing you showed me. Start with integrity, add opportunity, and multiply the result by sharing it with others. As Marcus placed the award in Victoria's hands, she felt the completion of a cycle that had begun with $3,000 in a lost wallet and had grown into a movement that would touch thousands of lives. The weight of the Crystal Award seemed to symbolize not just personal recognition, but the accumulated impact of every choice to reward goodness rather than simply acknowledge it. The standing ovation that followed lasted several minutes, but Victoria barely noticed the applause. She was thinking about a rainy Tuesday morning when a teenage boy had faced a choice between immediate embrace, financial relief, and doing what he knew was right. That choice had created a chain reaction of positive consequences that was still expanding, touching lives in ways that neither she nor Marcus could have imagined when their paths first crossed. In her acceptance speech, Victoria returned to the theme that had defined her relationship with Marcus from the beginning. Character isn't something you teach, she concluded, it's something you recognize and reward. When we celebrate integrity, we create more of it. When we invest in goodness, we multiply it. The young people supported by the Marcus Chen initiative will go on to support others, creating an endless cycle of positive impact that justifies our faith in humanity's potential. As the conference concluded and attendees began to disperse, Victoria found herself in conversation with current scholarship recipients, young people who reminded her strongly of Marcus at that age. They possessed the same combination of humility and determination, the same commitment to using their abilities for the benefit of others, the same understanding that opportunity comes with responsibility. One recipient, a 17-year-old named David Kim, approached Victoria with obvious nervousness. "Ms. Hayes, I wanted to thank you for creating this program. I know you started it because of what Marcus did, but I want you to know that it's inspiring all of us to look for ways to help others, the way you helped him." Victoria smiled, seeing in David's earnest expression the same quality that had first attracted her attention to Marcus. "David, the program exists because people like you and Marcus prove that integrity is alive. And, well, in your generation, my role is simply to make sure that such integrity gets the support it deserves." "Actually," David continued, "I have something I want to show you." He pulled out his phone and opened a photo album. "These are pictures from a tutoring program I started at my school, inspired by what Marcus did when he was my age. I figured if someone was willing to invest in my education, I should invest in other people's education too. The photos showed David working with younger students, the same patient attention to helping others that Victoria had observed in Marcus years earlier. She realized that the impact of her original decision was now extending into a third generation, creating a legacy of service that would continue long after she was gone. The evening concluded with a private dinner attended by Victoria, Marcus and Jennifer, Sophia, and several longtime supporters of the scholarship program. As Victoria looked around the table at the faces of people whose lives had been interconnected by her decision to reward a teenage boy's honesty, she felt a deep sense of completion and gratitude. Sophia, now in her 60s, but still possessing the quiet strength that had impressed Victoria at their first meeting, raised her glass for a final toast. Victoria, when Marcus told me about returning your wallet, I was proud of him for doing the right thing. But I never imagined that doing the right thing would lead to all of this. She gestured around the table. You turned my son's honesty into opportunities for hundreds of other young people. That's not just generosity, that's wisdom. Victoria accepted the toast graciously, but her thoughts were already turning to the future. The Marcus Chen initiative had become self-sustaining, generating its own funding through the success of its alumni and the support of companies that valued character-driven leadership. Marcus and Jennifer were expanding the program internationally, identifying young people in different countries who demonstrated the same integrity that had originally caught Victoria's attention. But perhaps most importantly, the program had created a model that other philanthropists and organizations were beginning to replicate. The idea that character should be actively sought out and rewarded was spreading beyond the initiative, influencing DASI, hiring practices, educational policies, and community programs across the country. As the evening wound down and final goodbyes were exchanged, Marcus approached Victoria one last time. Victoria, I have one more thing to give you. He handed her a small wrapped package, similar to the graduation gift he had given her years earlier. Inside was a simple leather journal, with an inscription on the first page. For Victoria Hayes, who proved that the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars. This journal is for recording all the good things that happen when good people have the power to help others. With eternal gratitude, Marcus Chen. Victoria opened the journal to find that Marcus had already made the first entry, a detailed account of their entire relationship from his perspective, beginning with his decision to return her wallet and ending with the establishment of the scholarship program. His final paragraph read, Victoria Hayes taught me that integrity creates opportunities. Opportunities create success, and success creates the responsibility to help others succeed. This cycle of positive impact is her true legacy, and it will continue long after both of us are gone. As Victoria read Marcus's words, she understood that their story had become something larger than either of their individual lives. It had become a demonstration of how small acts of goodness, when properly recognized and rewarded, could grow into movements that transformed entire communities. The wallet she had lost in a rainstorm had been returned with interest that compounded across years and generations, creating value that couldn't be measured in monetary terms. Driving home that night through the same streets where Marcus had once delivered pizzas on his bicycle, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them both to this point. A lost wallet had become a found purpose, a teenage boy's integrity had become a grown man's leadership, and a business executive's gratitude had become a lasting legacy of educational opportunity. The next morning, Victoria opened the journal Marcus had given her and began writing her own account of their relationship, starting with the day she had received an unexpected phone call from a boy who had found her wallet. As she wrote, she realized that their story wasn't really about money or education or even success in the traditional sense. It was about the power of recognizing goodness and the responsibility that comes with having the means to reward it. Marcus's note, tucked into her wallet 10 years earlier, had read, "Sometimes good things happen to good people." Victoria now understood that good things don't just happen randomly, they happen because people choose to make them happen. Her choice to invest in Marcus's integrity had created a cascade of positive consequences that would continue long after both of their stories had ended. The Marcus Chen initiative continued to grow and evolve, but its core mission remained the same: to find young people who demonstrated exceptional character and provide them with the resources to transform that character into positive impact. Each new recipient carried forward the lesson that integrity deserves reward, that success comes with responsibility, and that the most valuable investments are the ones made in other people's potential. Years later, when Victoria was asked to summarize the most important lesson of her business career, she would always return to the same story: a teenage boy who chose honesty over immediate financial gain, and a businesswoman who chose to reward that honesty rather than simply appreciate it. The return on that investment, she would explain, couldn't be calculated in dollars and cents, but it could be measured in the hundreds of lives that had been transformed by the principle that good people deserve good things, and that those who receive good things have the obligation to create more good things for others. The wallet that had started it all remained in Victoria's possession, kept in a place of honor in her home office. She never carried it again, but she looked at it often, remembering the rainy day when a simple act of integrity had created a connection that would define the rest of both their lives. The wallet had been returned with everything intact, but what it had generated since then was worth far more than its original contents, proving that sometimes the most valuable returns come from investments that can't be quantified in traditional terms. Marcus's original note, carefully preserved between the pages of Victoria's journal, continued to serve as a reminder of the truth that had brought them together. Sometimes good things do happen to good people, especially when other good people have the power and wisdom to make sure they do. The cycle of integrity, recognition, reward, and responsibility that had begun with a returned wallet would continue indefinitely, creating good things for good people across generations yet to come. 5 years after the national conference, Victoria received an urgent call that would test the principles she and Marcus had built their relationship upon. The caller was Dr. Patricia Reeves, Director of Emergency Services at Metropolitan General Hospital, and her voice carried the weight of serious news. "Ms. Hayes, I'm calling about Sophia Chen. She's been admitted to our cardiac unit following a severe heart attack. Her son Marcus asked me to contact you immediately." Victoria's hands trembled as she gathered her keys and purse, her mind racing with concern for the woman who had become like family to her. Sophia, now 72, had remained active and healthy, continuing her English classes and volunteering at a local literacy center. The idea of losing her felt devastating, not just personally, but because Sophia represented the foundation upon which Marcus's character had been built. At the hospital, Victoria found Marcus in the waiting area, his usually composed demeanor cracked with worry and exhaustion. Jennifer sat beside him, their 2 young children, Emma and Alexander, sleeping in nearby chairs. Marcus looked up as Victoria approached, and she could see in his eyes the same vulnerability he had shown as a 14-year-old boy, uncertain about accepting help. "Victoria, thank you for coming," Marcus said, standing to embrace her. "The doctors say the next 48 hours are critical. She's stable now, but the damage to her heart was significant." Victoria sat with the family through that long first night, watching Marcus struggle with the possibility of losing the woman who had shaped every aspect of his moral foundation. During quiet moments when the children were asleep and Jennifer was getting coffee, Marcus spoke about his fears in a way that reminded Victoria of their earliest conversations about deserving opportunities. "She sacrificed everything for me," Marcus said quietly, staring at the hospital room door. "Every late night cleaning offices, every missed meal so I could eat, every worn-out piece of clothing she kept wearing so I could have school supplies. I've spent my adult life trying to pay her back, but now I might not have the chance to do enough." Victoria recognized the weight of guilt and obligation that Marcus carried, understanding that his success had never fully relieved his sense of responsibility toward his mother. "Marcus, you've already given your mother the greatest gift possible. You became exactly the person she hoped you would become. And you've used that success to help hundreds of other families. She doesn't need you to pay her back. She needs you to keep paying it forward." Over the following weeks, as Sophia slowly recovered, Victoria witnessed a different side of the family dynamic she had observed for years. Marcus arranged for the best cardiac specialists, modified his work schedule to spend time at the hospital, and coordinated with Jennifer to ensure the children maintained their routines despite the crisis. But it was Sophia's response to this attention that revealed the depth of wisdom that had produced such an exceptional son. "Marcus, my boy," Sophia said during one of Victoria's visits, her voice still weak but her spirit clearly intact. "You worry too much about taking care of me. I raised you to take care of the world, not just your Secca." Old mother. Marcus looked up from the laptop where he had been working on Chen initiative business while staying by her bedside. "Mom, you took care of me my entire childhood. Now it's my turn to take care of you." Sophia shook her head with a smile that reminded Victoria of Marcus's own expressions of gentle stubbornness. "Taking care of me means continuing the work you've started with Victoria. The best way to honor what I did for you is to do the same thing for other families who need what we needed when you were young." Victoria watched this exchange with growing understanding of how Sophia's approach to motherhood had created the man Marcus had become. Even in her weakened state, Sophia was more concerned with her son's mission than with her own comfort, demonstrating the selfless perspective that had guided her parenting throughout Marcus's childhood. During Sophia's recovery period, an unexpected situation arose that would further expand the reach of their shared mission. A documentary filmmaker named Marcus Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname, approached Victoria about creating a film focused on the Chen initiative and its origins. Robert had learned about the program through his daughter, who was one of the current scholarship recipients, and he believed their story had the potential to inspire widespread changes in how society approached education and character development. The story of how a returned wallet became a movement that's changing lives across the country deserves to be told, Robert explained during their initial meeting at Victoria's office. But more than that, I think people need to see that individual actions really can create systematic change when they're based on the right principles. Victoria was initially hesitant about the publicity, preferring to keep the focus on the scholarship recipients rather than on herself or Marcus. However, Marcus convinced her that sharing their story more widely could inspire other successful individuals to create similar programs, multiplying their impact beyond what they could achieve alone. The documentary process revealed aspects of their relationship that even Victoria hadn't fully appreciated. Robert interviewed dozens of scholarship recipients, teachers, employers, and community leaders who had been touched by the Chen initiative, creating a comprehensive picture of how investment in character-driven education created ripple effects throughout entire communities. One particularly powerful interview featured Rosa Martinez, now a senior at Columbia University studying social work, who spoke about how receiving the scholarship had changed not just her own trajectory, but her family's entire approach to education and opportunity. Before the Chen initiative, college seemed like something that happened to other people, Rosa explained to the camera. Now, my younger brothers and sisters see education as achievable, and they're all working toward their own goals with confidence I never had at their age. The documentary also captured Sophia's perspective on her son's journey, filmed during her recovery when she was well enough to participate but still reflective about the fragility of life. "When Marcus was little, I used to worry that his honesty would be taken advantage of by people who didn't share his values," Sophia shared. "I never imagined that his honesty would attract people who would amplify it and turn it into something that helps so many families." Robert's cameras followed Marcus through a typical week, documenting his role as both a successful executive in the renewable energy sector and as the co-director of an educational foundation that had grown far beyond its original scope. The film showed Marcus reviewing scholarship applications, mentoring current recipients, speaking at educational conferences, and working on new initiatives designed to identify and support character-driven young people. But perhaps the most revealing footage came from unguarded moments when Marcus didn't realize he was being filmed. Robert captured Marcus stopping to help an elderly man who had dropped his groceries, staying late at the office to help a colleague solve a technical problem, and spending his lunch break video calling with a scholarship recipient who was struggling with the transition to college life. These spontaneous acts of service demonstrated that Marcus's integrity wasn't performative, but genuinely embedded in his daily choices. The documentary's climax focused on the 10-year anniversary celebration of the Chen initiative, an event that brought together hundreds of current and former scholarship recipients, their families, donors, and supporters. Victoria found herself overwhelmed by the gathering, seeing faces that represented countless individual stories of young people whose lives had been transformed by investment in their character and potential. During the anniversary dinner, Victoria was surprised by the appearance of Mr. Romano, Marcus's former boss from the pizza restaurant. Now in his 70s and long retired, Mr. Romano had been invited by Marcus to share his perspective on the boy who had worked for him during high school. "I hired dozens of kids over the years," Mr. Romano told the assembled crowd. "But Marcus was different. He never showed up late, never shortchanged customers, never complained about the work. I used to wonder what made him so responsible, and now I understand. He was already the person he would become. He just needed the right opportunities to show it." The anniversary celebration also featured the announcement of a major expansion of the Marcus Chen initiative. Through partnerships with corporations, foundations, and individual donors, inspired by the documentary and the program's track record, the initiative would be able to support over 500 students annually and expand internationally to countries where similar needs existed. Marcus delivered the keynote address that evening, speaking to an audience that included many of the people whose lives had been changed by Victoria's original decision to reward his honesty. 10 years ago, Victoria Hayes taught me that integrity creates opportunities, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the hotel ballroom. "Tonight, I want to tell you what I've learned since then. Opportunities create responsibilities, responsibilities create communities, and communities create the power to change the world." And he gestured toward Victoria, who was seated at the head table with Sophia, now fully recovered and beaming with pride. "The wallet I returned contained $3,000. But the return on Victoria's investment in my integrity has been measured in millions of dollars of scholarships, hundreds of young lives transformed, and countless acts of service performed by people who learned that character deserves reward and success demands generosity." End quote. The speech continued with Marcus announcing a new initiative that would further expand their mission. Working with Jennifer's company and several partner organizations, they were launching the Global Character Leadership Network, designed to identify and connect young people worldwide who demonstrated exceptional integrity and commitment to serving others. "Character isn't limited by geography, economics, or culture," Marcus explained. "In every country, in every community, there are young people making ethical choices despite personal cost, choosing service over self-interest, demonstrating integrity under pressure. Our job is to find these people and give them the resources to transform their character into leadership that benefits everyone around them." End quote. Victoria listened to Marcus's vision with amazement at how far their relationship had evolved from its simple beginning. The boy who had worried about deserving a scholarship was now architecting a global movement based on the principles they had discovered together through their shared commitment to rewarding goodness wherever it appeared. The international expansion began with pilot programs in 6 countries, each chosen because local partnerships had identified young people whose stories resonated with the same themes that had originally connected Victoria and Marcus. In Kenya, they supported a teenage girl who had started a literacy program for younger children, using books she created herself from scraps of paper. In India, they invested in a boy who had organized his entire neighborhood to clean polluted waterways despite facing ridicule from peers who thought such work was beneath them. Each international recipient was connected with mentors from the existing Marcus Chen network, creating cross-cultural relationships that enriched both the program and the participants. Victoria found herself corresponding with young people across the globe, learning about different cultural expressions of the same fundamental values that had drawn her to Marcus years earlier. The success of the international expansion attracted attention from major philanthropic organizations and governmental education departments interested in replicating the Hayes-Chen model. Victoria began traveling extensively, consulting with groups in various countries who wanted to establish similar character-based scholarship programs adapted to their local contexts and needs. During one such trip to Singapore, where Victoria was helping establish an Asian regional office for the Global Character Leadership Network, she received news that would bring her relationship with Marcus full circle. In an unexpected way, Marcus called her hotel room with excitement barely contained in his voice. "Victoria, you're not going to believe what just happened. Emma found a wallet in the park today during her soccer practice. And she insisted on tracking down the owner to return it. The wallet belonged to the mayor's chief of staff and contained important documents for a city council meeting tonight. Emma refused any reward, just like I did when I was her age." "Huh." Victoria felt chills as Marcus continued the story. The chief of staff was so impressed that she called the mayor, who wants to recognize Emma at next week's city council meeting. But here's the incredible part. Emma told the chief of staff about our family's history with returned wallets, and now the mayor wants to discuss creating a municipal character education program based on the Chen model. Listening to Marcus describe his 8-year-old daughter's instinctive choice to do the right thing, despite having no expectation of reward, Victoria realized that the values they had spent years systematizing and spreading were being naturally transmitted to the next generation. Emma's action wasn't the result of formal education about integrity. It was the organic expression of principles she had absorbed from watching her parents live according to character-driven priorities. When Victoria returned from Singapore, she attended Emma's recognition ceremony at City Hall, watching Marcus and Jennifer beam with pride as their daughter received official acknowledgement for her honesty. But Victoria was more interested in Emma's reaction to the attention, noting the same mixture of humility and determination that had characterized her father at the same age. "I didn't return the wallet to get an award," Emma told the assembled city council members and local media representatives. "I returned it because it wasn't mine, and someone was probably worried about losing it. My daddy taught me that taking things that don't belong to you is wrong, even if no one would know you took them." The simplicity and directness of Emma's explanation reminded Victoria of Marcus's original response to her gratitude, demonstrating that core values could be transmitted across generations without losing their essential power. The ceremony concluded with the mayor announcing the creation of the Metropolitan Character Education Initiative, a partnership between the city and the Chen Foundation designed to integrate character development into public school curricula. The program's continued expansion brought Victoria and Marcus into contact with educational researchers interested in studying the long-term outcomes of character-based scholarship programs. Dr. Amanda Foster, a professor of educational psychology at Harvard, conducted a comprehensive analysis of Chen recipients compared to students who had received traditional merit-based scholarships. Dr. Foster's research revealed that Chen recipients showed significantly higher levels of community engagement, ethical decision-making in professional contexts, and commitment to mentoring other young people. More surprisingly, they also showed higher levels of career satisfaction and mental health, suggesting that being selected for character rather than just academic achievement created a stronger foundation for long-term success and well-being. The Chen model appears to create a virtuous cycle, Dr. Foster explained during a presentation of her findings to the Foundation's board of directors. Students who are recognized for integrity develop stronger identity as ethical leaders, which influences their choices throughout their careers, which creates more opportunities to practice and develop their character, which strengthens their commitment to helping others do the same." End quote. The research validated what Victoria and Marcus had observed anecdotally, but hadn't been able to prove systematically, that investing in character produced returns that extended far beyond individual academic or professional achievement. The study's publication in major educational journals brought additional credibility to their approach and inspired other institutions to examine their own selection criteria and support systems. As the Chen initiative approached its 15th anniversary, Victoria began contemplating her legacy and succession planning. Now in her late 60s, she remained actively involved in the Foundation's work, but recognized the importance of ensuring continuity beyond her own participation. Marcus had grown into an exceptional leader, but Victoria wanted to ensure that the principles they had developed together would survive and evolve, even after both of their direct involvement ended. The solution came through an unexpected source: the scholarship recipients themselves. Led by Rosa Martinez, now a successful social worker running her own nonprofit organization, A group of Chen alumni proposed creating a formal alumni association that would take increasing responsibility for mentoring new recipients, fundraising, and program development. You and Marcus taught us that receiving help creates the obligation to provide help to others, Rosa explained during the proposal presentation. We want to institutionalize that principle by creating a structure where every Chen recipient automatically becomes part of the support system for future recipients. The Alumni Association's formation marked another evolution in the program's development, transforming it from a traditional scholarship foundation into a self-sustaining network of character-driven leaders who supported each other's continued growth while expanding opportunities for the next generation. Victoria watched this development with deep satisfaction, understanding that the program had achieved true sustainability by embedding its values into the people it served, rather than relying solely on external funding and management. The documentary about their story was finally completed and premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, where it won the Audience Award for Documentary Feature. The film's success led to broader distribution and sparked national conversations about character education, the role of mentorship in youth development, and the responsibility of successful individuals to create opportunities for others. Victoria attended the film's premiere with Marcus, Jennifer, Sophia, and the children, feeling surreal about seeing their private relationship projected onto a large screen for hundreds of strangers. But the audience's response convinced her that sharing their story had been the right decision. During the post-screening discussion, multiple audience members approached the microphone to share how the film had inspired them to seek out young people in their own communities who demonstrated character worthy of support. One particularly moving comment came from a businessman who announced his intention to establish a similar program in his home state, specifically seeking out young people who had demonstrated integrity in difficult circumstances. Watching this film made me realize that I've been thinking about philanthropy all wrong, he said. Instead of just giving money to established institutions, I should be looking for individuals who embody the values I want to see more of in the world. The film's impact extended beyond individual inspiration to influence policy discussions about education funding and youth development programs. Several state education departments reached out to Victoria and Marcus about incorporating character assessment into their scholarship and support programs. Recognizing that academic achievement alone wasn't sufficient for identifying students most likely to become positive community leaders. As Victoria reflected on the 15-year journey from Marcus's returned wallet to a global movement affecting thousands of lives, she understood that their story illustrated fundamental truths about human nature, and social change. Individual actions, when based on genuine values and properly supported, could create exponential positive impact. Character could be identified, rewarded, and multiplied through systematic effort. Most importantly, successful people had both the opportunity and the responsibility to create success for others. The anniversary celebration that year included a surprise that Victoria hadn't anticipated: the announcement of the Victoria Hayes Center for Character Leadership, a permanent institute housed at Marcus's alma mater that would conduct research, provide training, and coordinate character-based programs worldwide. The center was funded by contributions from Chen alumni, partner organizations, and individuals inspired by their story. Victoria, you taught me that integrity creates opportunities, Marcus said during the dedication ceremony. But you also taught me that opportunities create obligations. This center represents our obligation to ensure that what we've learned together becomes available to future generations of young people and the adults who want to support them. Standing in the lobby of the beautiful new facility bearing her name, surrounded by photographs of hundreds of young people whose lives had been transformed by their shared commitment to rewarding character, Victoria felt the profound satisfaction of knowing that her decision to invest in one honest boy had created something far larger and more enduring than either of them could have imagined. The center's first major initiative was a comprehensive study of character development across cultures, designed to identify universal principles that could guide similar programs regardless of local context. Victoria served as the project's senior advisor, working with researchers from multiple countries to understand how integrity, service, and ethical leadership manifested in different societies, and how such qualities could be most effectively nurtured and supported. The study's preliminary findings suggested that while cultural expressions of character varied significantly, the fundamental human capacity for ethical choice under pressure was universal, as was the positive response to having such choices recognized and rewarded. This research provided a scientific foundation for expanding character-based programs globally while respecting local values and traditions. As Victoria approached her 70th birthday, she made the decision to step back from day-to-day involvement in the Chen initiative while remaining available as a senior advisor and mentor. Marcus had long since demonstrated his ability to lead the organization independently, and the Alumni Association had proven capable of handling much of the program's operational requirements. Her farewell address to the Foundation's board of directors and key supporters focused on the lessons she had learned throughout their shared journey. 15 years ago, I thought I was simply rewarding a young man's honesty, Victoria concluded. I now understand that I was participating in something much larger. The demonstration that individual character can be identified, supported, and multiplied to create systematic positive change. Marcus didn't just return my wallet, he returned my faith in humanity's potential for goodness. The speech concluded with Victoria's announcement of her final major contribution to their shared mission, the establishment of a permanent endowment that would ensure the Chen initiative could continue indefinitely, regardless of economic conditions or changes in philanthropic priorities. The endowment, funded by Victoria's personal wealth accumulated over decades of successful business leadership, would provide stable support for character-based education programs worldwide. Marcus responded to Victoria's announcement with tears in his eyes, understanding that her decision represented both incredible generosity and a profound expression of faith in the principles they had developed together. Victoria, you've given me two gifts that have defined my entire adult life, he said. First, you recognized my character when I didn't even know I possessed it. Second, you taught me that recognition creates responsibility, and responsibility creates the opportunity to transform individual values into community change. The endowment ceremony brought together the largest gathering in the Foundation's history, including hundreds of scholarship recipients, their families, partner organizations, and supporters who had contributed to the program's growth over 15 years. Victoria looked out over the assembled crowd and saw faces representing every aspect of their shared mission. Young people whose integrity had been rewarded with opportunity, families whose circumstances had been transformed by investment in their children's character, and community leaders who had learned to identify and support goodness wherever they found it. In her final formal remarks as the Foundation's active leader, Victoria returned to the simple truth that had started their entire journey. Marcus's note in my wallet said that sometimes good things happen to good people, she reminded the audience. 15 years later, I can tell you with certainty that good things don't just happen. They're created by people who choose to make them happen. Every person in this room represents a choice to believe in character, to invest in integrity, and to trust that individual goodness can create collective change. The evening concluded with a traditional scholarship presentation ceremony, where new recipients were welcomed into the Chen family and connected with mentors from the Alumni Association. Victoria watched this process with deep satisfaction, knowing that the cycle she and Marcus had created would continue long after both of their direct involvement ended. As the celebration wound down and guests began to depart, Victoria found herself in a quiet corner with Marcus, Jennifer, and Sophia, sharing a moment of reflection about the journey that had brought them all together. Sophia, now in her late 70s but still sharp and engaged, offered her own perspective on the evening's significance. Victoria, when you first told me about wanting to help Marcus, I was suspicious because I didn't understand what you wanted from us, Sophia admitted. Now I understand that you didn't want anything from us. You wanted something for us, and eventually for everyone whose life you've touched through this work. Victoria squeezed Sophia's hand, grateful for the woman whose parenting had created the character that had made their entire relationship possible. Sophia, you raised a son who chose integrity over convenience, and that choice changed both of our lives. Everything that's happened since then has been a result of the values you instilled in Marcus before I ever met him. Ah! As they prepared to leave that evening, Marcus handed Victoria one final gift. A leather journal identical to the one he had given her years earlier, but this one contained messages from hundreds of Chen recipients expressing their gratitude for the opportunities created by her decision to reward his honesty. The journal's final entry was from Emma, now 10 years old and already showing signs of the same character that had distinguished her father. Dear Victoria, Emma's message read in careful child's handwriting. Thank you for helping my daddy when he was young, so he could help other kids when he grew up. I want to help kids too when I'm older, just like you and daddy do now. I hope someday I'll find someone's wallet and return it just like daddy did, because good things should happen to good people. Reading Emma's words, Victoria understood that their story had achieved its ultimate success. The natural transmission of values across generations, creating a legacy that would continue indefinitely through the choices made by young people who had learned that integrity deserves reward and success demands generosity. The Chen initiative continued to grow and evolve under Marcus's leadership, eventually supporting over 1,000 students annually across 6 continents. But Victoria's proudest achievement wasn't the program's scale or reach. It was the demonstration that individual character could be systematically identified, rewarded, and multiplied to create positive change that extended far beyond any single relationship or institution. Years later, when Victoria was asked to identify the most important lesson of her entire career, she would always return to the same answer: a 14-year-old boy who chose to return a lost wallet instead of keeping the money it contained. That choice had taught her that good things don't happen to good people by accident. They happen because other good people choose to make them happen. The most valuable investment anyone could make wasn't in stocks or bonds or real estate, but in the character of young people who would use their success to create more success for others. The wallet itself remained in Victoria's possession, displayed in a place of honor in her home study, alongside photographs of hundreds of young people whose lives had been transformed by the principle it represented. But the wallet's true value wasn't as a memento of past generosity. It was as a reminder that every act of integrity created the potential for unlimited positive impact, provided it was recognized and properly supported by people with the wisdom and resources to invest in human character. Marcus's original note, now carefully preserved behind glass, continued to serve as the foundation's unofficial motto. Sometimes good things happen to good people. Victoria had learned that this wasn't just a hopeful sentiment, but a practical truth that could be systematically implemented to create a better world for everyone. Good things happen to good people when other good people had the courage and wisdom to make sure they did.